The moment you walk into a room, people are already forming a story about you. They read your face, gauge your voice, interpret your silences. Most of this happens unconsciously, out of fear, desire, or insecurity. But Machiavelli did it deliberately and coldly. For him, power wasn't just about words or actions. It was about how quickly you could see through others to manipulate someone. You must first understand them. To protect yourself, you must anticipate them. To dominate them, you must have read them before. They even know they've been seen. Machiavelli understood that the surface rarely holds the truth. A smile can be an act. A handshake can hide a threat. A compliment can be a probe. So he constructed tactics, not guesses. 14 psychological moves to unmask character. Motive and weakness on the spot. The first tactic: watch how someone treats the invisible. Don't focus on how they treat you. That's easy to fake. Instead, observe how they behave toward whoever they think won't matter. The waiter, the intern, the overlooked stranger. Power reveals the weak-minded gradually. When people assume no consequence, their true nature slips out. How someone treats the powerless is a far clearer measure of character than how they act among equals. The key. Second tactic: silence them and watch the mask fall. Insecurity feeds on noise. People fear being exposed, so they use chatter as camouflage. If you want to read someone fast, speak less than they do, say nothing. Let the pauses grow. Your silence becomes pressure. Under it, many will overshare, trying to impress, betraying fears, revealing motives. Silence is not an absence of communication. It's a test. The third tactic: offer them nothing and see what they do. One of Machiavelli's most ruthless tactics. Give them nothing. No approval. No affection, no reward, only your presence. Unreadable and detached. Why? Because people reveal themselves when there's nothing to gain. If they grow cold, their warmth was just a transaction. If they try harder, they're insecure and desperate for validation. If they stay steady, they possess real emotional control, and that makes them dangerous. The less you give, the more they expose. The fourth tactic: disrupt their control pattern. Some people speak in rehearsed scripts, polished charm, staged vulnerability, even counterfeit honesty. These performances are designed to control perception, and they're hardest to read unless you break the script. How? Ask an unexpected question. Answer flattery with suspicion. Let silence choke their joke. Shift topics when they're building momentum. When their act is interrupted, they stumble. And in that stumble, their true self surfaces. The fifth tactic: test loyalty with small losses. Never wait for betrayal to prove someone's allegiance. Engineer the test. Refuse a minor request, deny a favor they assumed was certain. Withdraw attention for a moment, then watch. Do they remain respectful? Or do they criticize, pull away, or gossip? Machiavelli understood. Loyalty isn't proven when people are gaining. It's revealed in how they react to being denied. A small no uncovers the largest truth. The sixth tactic: measure focus. Not words. Words lie. Focus does not while they talk. Track where their attention goes. Do their eyes gravitate to the powerful? They crave status. Do they dismiss those with no influence? They only respect advantage. Do they glance at their phone while with you? You're not a priority. You're a placeholder. Do they mirror your expressions? They're chasing your favor. Machiavelli didn't trust speech. He followed attention, because attention is investment. And where someone invests reveals what they value most. The seventh tactic: bait them with a false weakness. Tell them something harmless yet framed as a flaw. I tend to overthink, or I used to be too trusting. Then watch if they weaponize it later, mocking or exploiting your words. They're opportunistic. If they ignore it, they're either respectful or cautious. If they respond by revealing a real flaw of their own, they crave connection and feel safe by feeding them a fictional vulnerability. You test their nature without ever risking your own. The eighth tactic: make them wait. Nothing exposes entitlement faster than delay. Answer slowly. Postpone meetings. Take longer than expected to deliver. The eighth tactic: make them wait. Delay is the purest mirror of entitlement. Respond slowly. Push back a meeting. Take longer than promised to deliver something small. The reaction tells you everything. If they grow angry, they're driven by ego. If they get anxious, they crave control. If they stay calm, They've mastered patience, and patience is the weapon of predators. Waiting is not absence. It's leverage, and under it, people reveal whether they believe they deserve your time or must earn it. The 9th tactic: watch what makes them laugh. Humor is a window into hidden cruelty. If they laugh hardest at pain, weakness, or humiliation, you've seen their shadow. If they laugh only to flatter, their humor is currency, not truth. If they laugh freely, even at themselves, they hold inner strength. What amuses a person is what moves their soul, and what moves their soul reveals the forces you can use against them. The 10th tactic: give them power in miniature. Hand them a small responsibility, a choice with no real consequence. Then step back. Do they abuse it? They'll abuse more. Do they freeze with indecision? They fear accountability. Do they handle it cleanly and return control? That's discipline, and discipline is rare, Machiavelli knew. Power doesn't change people. It unmasks them. A taste is enough to expose the appetite. The 11th tactic: test them with contradiction. Agree with them, then suddenly oppose them. Praise them, then challenge them. People who seek truth will welcome the clash. Fragile egos will crumble or lash out. Manipulators will adapt instantly, shifting positions to preserve approval by creating contradiction. You see if someone is anchored in principle, or if they're a boat drifting on the current of validation. The 12th tactic: observe how they handle silence after disclosure. Reveal a story, a secret, or a confession. Then say nothing. Don't rush to explain or soften the air. Their reaction shows who they are. Do they weaponize the silence, pressing for more? They hunger for control. Do they offer comfort? They seek connection. Do they shift away, uncomfortable? They fear depth. What someone does after your words is often louder than what they say during them. The 13th tactic: disrupt their rhythm of certainty. Everyone has a pattern of confidence, of charm, of control. Break it. Step closer than expected. Ask a blunt question. Shift the tone when they've settled. Watch how quickly they recover. True strength recalibrates. False strength fractures. And in that fracture, you see who's real and who's rehearsed. The 14th tactic: watch their exits, not their entrances. Anyone can enter a room with performance, but how do they leave? Do they leave chaos behind or calm? Do they exit with respect or with disregard? A person's ending always reveals their truth, because beginnings are built for show. Endings are built from essence, money, status, shame, past failures, power. Track the eyes when these words land. They twitch, they shift, they drop. The second you touch a nerve, Machiavelli understood. The eyes are not just windows to the soul. They're escape routes for suppressed emotions. What makes the gaze? Flee tells you what the mind fears most, and then come the final 2 tactics, the most dangerous of all the ones Machiavelli used to guard thrones. Outmaneuver betrayals and pull the strings of entire courts. These aren't about reading others, they're about controlling how they read you, because while the weak chased answers, Machiavelli provoked answers to come to him. He built tension, not trust. He didn't ask, he triggered. The 13th tactic: become the mirror they cannot ignore. Everyone wears a mask. They charm, they posture, they perform, but mirror someone subtly, patiently. Mirror their tone, their posture, their phrasing in that moment. Something primal stirs, unconscious recognition. They see themselves in you. And what happens next is pure revelation. Mirror their casualness. Do they grow louder, trying to dominate? Mirror their confidence. Do they hesitate, suddenly unsure? Mirror their insecurity. Do they turn mocking, scrambling for superiority? The more violently they shift when their own energy comes back to them, the more false their mask always was. The 14th tactic: disarm with respect, then cut with precision. Most people enter a conversation armored, ready for judgment. Excuses rehearsed, filters in place. Machiavelli broke that armor by doing the unexpected, offering respect first. Praise their intelligence, validate an achievement, acknowledge their insight. Whether true or not doesn't matter. Safety does. Because once they feel safe, you strike with the real question, the one that bypasses all defenses. You clearly think deeply. What fear drives those thoughts? You seem so confident. When did you first learn to fake it? You're good at reading people. How do you know when they're reading you? Respect lowers the guard. The surgical question rips the mask away. People are never more honest than when they feel admired. And that, Machiavelli knew, is when you see the truth they spend a lifetime hiding. Once the surface data is out, the deeper work begins. Reading people strategically. Machiavelli didn't catalog personalities for curiosity. He treated people like terrain. Every flaw, habit, and blind spot was a feature to use. Defend against or exploit spot someone's fear, and you find leverage. See their need for admiration, and a slight withdrawal will make them chase. Your approval detect a craving for control, and unpredictability becomes your weapon. If someone is dangerous, smiling with a dagger behind it, you already know where to apply pressure or how to make their own impulses undo them. This is psychological. Reading turned into strategy. Build mental profiles, but never voice them. Machiavelli didn't announce diagnoses in conversation. He filed them in his head and acted without revealing the tags. Labels alert and empower. Resistance influence works best when it slips in like treatment without a diagnosis. A few practical archetypes to keep in mind. The masked pleaser, hungry for approval. Praise controls them. Denial wounds them dangerously. The silent climber, outwardly loyal but scanning for power vacuums. Honor them publicly, but don't trust their proximity. The fragile genius, brilliant yet unstable. Useful only with careful emotional management. The loud defender, over-explains, overreacts, justifies, often hiding guilt or deep insecurity. You don't tell them what they are. You simply adapt your handling so they never realize they're being handled. Observe how they take no. For Machiavelli, strength showed under restriction, not in victory. Refuse an expected favor, compliment, or sliver of attention, and then watch if they stay composed. Their will is disciplined if they brood or lash out. Ego rules them if the mask drops and a raw tone returns. They were only performing. Denial is the truest baseline of a person. Always ask, who are they performing for? People don't speak merely to express. They position every sentence as a strategic move. Even when it seems unconscious, if they're angling at you, they want your validation. If they're grandstanding to a group, they're claiming dominance. If they're referencing someone absent, they've chosen a hidden target. Watch their eyes. Watch who they look at. That one glance reveals their audience, their hunger, and the direction their energy will take. That's when the real data shows up. Once you can read someone psychologically, the next layer is strategic reading. Machiavelli didn't collect personality types for curiosity. He mapped people like terrain. Every habit, every blind spot, every fear is a lever, something to use. Guard against or bend to your will. Spot abandonment, anxiety, and distance becomes your tool spot. A hunger for praise and a little disapproval sends them chasing you. Spot a need for control, and unpredictability breaks them. If someone hides a dagger behind a smile, you already know where to apply pressure or how to set them on a path to defeat themselves. This is psychological insight converted into strategy. Build mental archetypes. Quietly, privately, and act from them. Don't name the diagnosis aloud. Labels alert and resist. Influence works best when it slips in like treatment without a diagnosis. Here are the practical moves Machiavellian minds use once they've read someone. First, mirror their desire. Then redirect it. Don't confront what they want, reflect it. Compliment the ambitious, validate the insecure, honor the dominant. You lower their defenses by showing you understand their hunger, then gently link that hunger to your aim. If they crave recognition, show them how joining your plan wins them more of it. If they want influence, show how your path amplifies their visibility. Never wrestle with their desire. Hijack its direction so they follow, thinking it was their idea. Second, use calibrated vulnerability to unspool them. Offer a small, believable flaw. I don't always trust first impressions, or I get lost in work sometimes. That controlled weakness does three things. It flatters their ego, they feel superior. Creates emotional investment, they become helpful. And builds false intimacy, they feel trusted. In that state, they talk freely. Not because you forced them, but because they feel safe and elevated. The mind that feels safe and superior reveals the most. Third, reveal half a secret to create false security. Let slip a partial confession or an unfinished story. People instinctively want to complete narratives and to reciprocate disclosure. That half-truth pulls them forward, either to finish your story for you, to confess something of their own, or to volunteer information to fill the gap. A half-secret is bait for honesty. It invites them to finish the sentence you left open. Fourth, manufacture scarcity and deadlines to reveal priorities. Put time pressure on choices, limit offers, make the opportunity fleeting. Entitled People Panic. The ambitious prioritize rapidly. The careful weigh and disappear scarcity forces revelation. Who will act for reward? Who will act from principle? Who will act from fear? Fifth, secure small commitments and escalate. Get a micro yes first, a tiny favor, a minor agreement, then thread larger asks through that initial concession. People who say yes to small things will say yes to bigger things. Consistency becomes the chain that leads them where you want. Sixth, design the choices they make. Frame options, so every apparent route brings them closer to your objective. Give them the illusion of control by letting them choose between two paths you already arranged. Choice breeds ownership. Ownership breeds loyalty, and they'll believe their movement was autonomous throughout. Watch who they're impressing, and what they loudly champion versus what they quietly avoid. Loud virtue often masks its opposite. I'm brutally honest can be selective cruelty. I always put others first can hide resentment and control. Where someone screams a value, probe the shadow behind it. Truth often lives in the opposite. Remember, with this power comes a choice. Use it to influence, to protect, to win, but not to wound needlessly. Machiavelli treated people as instruments to move the game forward, not empty targets to destroy. The sharpest intelligence is the one that shapes outcomes while leaving others convinced they acted on their own terms. Equality. People trust most when they think. Trust is being reciprocated. So Machiavelli would offer a partial truth, a controlled confession, raw enough to seem real, but never dangerous. Something like, I had to learn the hard way not to rely on people I thought I could trust, or I was underestimated a lot in the beginning until I stopped being nice. That creates a false mirror. They believe you're just like them, in their relief. They drop their guard and reveal a genuine vulnerability. You gave them a puzzle piece. They hand you the entire map. This was the exchange. Machiavelli mastered fourth tactic of influence. Let them define themselves, and then use it against them. Never tell people who they are. Let them declare it. I value loyalty above all. I hate when people waste time. I don't let emotions control me. Now you hold their script. You know what they're protecting, and you know how to frame requests, objections, or commands so they fit the identity they already believe in. Want them to act against instinct? Just tie it to their self-definition. You're the kind of person who values loyalty. I trust you'll handle this. Or, you don't tolerate inefficiency. Here's the shortcut we need. You're not persuading, you're reaffirming. And people rarely fight what feels like their own truth. Fifth tactic, create a reputation they must protect. People fear losing face more than missing a gain. Machiavelli gave reputations before people had earned them. You're known for keeping your word. Everyone respects you for avoiding petty politics. You're always the one who keeps balance. Now they're trapped. If they betray the image, they risk looking weak, fake, or inconsistent, so they uphold the role you wrote for them. You've installed behavior without ever issuing a command. Sixth tactic, leak just enough information to steer perception. Influence doesn't always need to be direct. Sometimes you just plant hints in the air. A casual story about outsmarting a rival, a joke that signals you're not easily deceived, a throwaway remark about your high standards. These accidents create anticipation. People recalibrate around you, adjusting themselves to fit the version they think they've uncovered. And once they believe they figured you out, they stop questioning you. Predictability is born from false discovery. Seventh tactic, let them win early so you can own the outcome later. One of Machiavelli's coldest maneuvers was to hand people small victories at the start. Give them what looks like control, autonomy, even dominance. Let them feel the rush of success. And then, when the stakes rise, they don't resist your lead. They've already bought into the game you allowed them to win. Victories. Give them just enough to believe their idea won, their leadership mattered, or their insight was rare. Machiavelli fed egos with small, harmless wins while engineering the real outcome for himself. He understood. People protect what they think they built, defend what they think was theirs, and remain loyal when they feel important, even if they're being used. Let them write the first line. You control the ending. At this stage, you're no longer just reading people. You're building frameworks around their behavior. You're not reacting. You're predicting. But the highest level of Machiavellian reading isn't about others. It's about what your perception of others exposes about you. Every sharp observer carries a shadow. See through too many masks, and you risk believing you stand above them all. You start moving without empathy. You begin to control for sport. That is where the dangerous mind must evolve. Not just into one who reads, influences, and outplays, but one who knows exactly when to end the game, when to walk away, and still leave with the win at the highest tier of insight. The game no longer feels like a game. It becomes instinct. You don't think, how do I read this person? You simply do. You enter a room and the signals arrive unspoken. Who's insecure? Who's performing? Who quietly holds power? And who's watching you as intently as you're watching them? This is the final stage. Reading becomes instinct. Influence becomes invisible. Control becomes effortless. But with that power comes the greatest test. Restraint. The most dangerous mind is not the one who plays endlessly. It's the one who knows when to end the game entirely. To stop is to win. To disappear is to command. The master does not prove his power in perpetual conquest. He proves it in absence, leaving others to act in ways he has already shaped without them realizing it. Disappearance is the ultimate move. No drama, no challenge, no closure, only quiet control. Because when they cannot find you, they cannot fight you. They begin to speak your name in whispers, not knowing whether to admire you or fear you. Machiavelli knew that true power lies in invisibility. That is why he taught not just how to read and influence, but how to vanish at the right moment, leaving behind a world already rewritten by your hand. This is the final transformation of the strategist, not a player in the game, but the author of its rules. When you master this, the question stops being how do I read people and becomes what do I do with what I know. At the highest level of Machiavellian insight, you no longer look for openings. You become the opening. You no longer search for the truth behind masks. You become the reason the mask slips. You walk into a room and know, without thinking, exactly who holds power, who is pretending, who fears you, and who is waiting for your move. And at that moment, the game is no longer theirs. It is yours, because power, in its purest form, is not taken. It is granted by those who never realize they handed it to you. This is the ultimate truth Machiavelli lived by. The art of power is not simply in knowing others, but in knowing yourself. Every glance you read, every weakness you expose, every choice you steer is a reflection of your own discipline. The greatest mastery is self-mastery. Without it, all insight becomes arrogance. All strategy becomes exploitation. Final transformation is not becoming the most cunning in the room. It is becoming the one who no longer needs to prove cunning. You cultivate silence as a weapon, patience as armor, and absence as influence. You learn to walk away before the game consumes you, leaving others bound to the path you've already laid. Power is not about domination alone. It is about legacy. And legacy is not created in the noise of conquest, but in the quiet certainty that you change the course of events without leaving yourself. Exposed Machiavelli's teaching was never simply about strategy. It was about evolution, transforming perception into instinct, instinct into influence, and influence into art. To read someone is not merely to understand them, it is to sculpt the reality they will inhabit. And to master that is to master the game entirely. The question is no longer whether you can see through masks. It is whether you can become the one who makes masks fall away without a single word. At that level, power stops being a pursuit. It becomes the air you breathe. And then, without effort, you already have everything.